Welcome to episode 81 of the Girl About the Globe podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by the current Global Travel Writer of the Year and fellow adventurer Jessica Vincent to discuss the best British travel writing of the 21st century. If you've ever wanted to become a travel writer, or you're just looking to get inspired by the best travel writing, this episode is for you. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Girl About the Globe, a podcast for you, the solo female traveller, empowering women to travel solo with maximum adventure, minimum impact.
Welcome to another episode of the Girl About the Globe podcast, empowering you to travel solo with maximum adventure, minimum impact. Today, I'm joined by the amazing British travel writer and adventurer, Jessica Vincent. Jessica is a multi-award-winning travel journalist whose work has appeared in National Geographic Traveller, BBC Travel, CNN Travel, The Independent, The Telegraph, and so many more. So thank you for joining me today, Jessica.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I love the fact that you've been living out of a backpack since you graduated. Can you just take us back to that time and where your sense of wanderlust began?
Yes, I was 21 when I graduated from university, and straight away I took an internship in London. So I didn't have this kind of gap. I didn't take a gap year between school and university, and then again between university and work. So I went straight into work, and I think in hindsight that was probably a mistake because I lasted 9 months in a proper job in London, and the whole time I was just thinking about travel. That's all I could think about. So I actually approached my employer and said, would you take me on remotely if I go and travel? And this is before COVID, right? This is like 5 years ago. So it wasn't that, especially for an intern, to ask your employer if you could go traveling. So I thought they were going to say no. But to my surprise, they were really lovely about it. And they said, yeah, we'll take you on. It was for a fraction of the money that I was getting in the office. But to me, it was a few pennies that it would pay for, my hostel rooms for some of them. So I was really excited, and I booked a one-way flight to Cuba. And
Wow.
yeah, now 5 years on, I'm still living out of a backpack, and I haven't had a home since. So yes, it went well.
So are you location independent?
I am. Yes. So at the moment, I still don't have a base as such, which is, even for a travel writer, is quite unusual. I think most people have a base, and I am getting to a point where I probably need one. I'm currently doing this podcast from my nan's house. So it is getting to that point where I probably do need a house. But yes, I have been living out of my backpack and just working on the road in different places, living in Airbnbs, things like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's kind of similar to me as well. And it's quite a kind of trendy topic now, isn't it, to become nomadic and live wherever you choose. What do you love so much about the lifestyle?
I think it's just the freedom to be able to wake up on a Monday morning and go for a walk on the beach or go for a hike in the mountains. There's something very liberating, very empowering to be able to do something like that. I don't want to say whatever you want, whenever you want, because that isn't, the case. There are certain things that have to be done at a certain time. As you know, we do have responsibilities, even as remote workers, but there is an incredible sense of freedom for me, which I love, and that doesn't have to be, as a travel writer, that is just having the independence to live and work where I want and to choose my hours as well is incredibly liberating for me. I don't get paid holiday. There are some cons, but for me that freedom it trumps all of that. So that's my favorite thing, I think.
Definitely. And which countries have surprised you the most since you've been living out of a backpack?
I think I spent a lot of time in Central and South America, And Mexico for me was one of those countries where I always wanted to go there, but it was so much more than what is reported on about Mexico. Mexico is one of those countries that either gets a really bad rap, or the articles are on it very much about Cancun, about the beach, about the party, nightlife. And it does have all of that, but it also has an incredible, has incredible cities. With Mexico City, for example, before I went 5 years ago, I only heard negative things about Mexico City. I heard that it was dangerous, not a place for a young woman to be going to. But when I got there, it just completely blew my mind. It's actually one of my favorite cities. So much to do. It's so much culture, art, food. It's just everything that you could ever possibly want, and actually not as dangerous as people make out. I actually felt safe in the parts of Mexico City that I was in. And in general, Mexico for me is a country that is so diverse. It has so many indigenous cultures. So you can be in one state and experience a completely different Mexico in Oaxaca than you can in Chiapas. It's completely different. So for me, Mexico opened up my eyes to how different a place can be, especially compared to what's portrayed in the media.
Yeah, definitely. Does that mean that you travel solo most of the time?
No, I traveled with my boyfriend at the time, my fiance now. But yeah, we traveled together. Oh, thank you. We traveled together a lot of the time, but through my work I do also travel solo for a lot of the stories that I do for Nat Geo and Condé Nast and all of those are all independent. So I've had experience of both, traveling as a couple and alone. Both have their their good bits and their bad bits.
I've never really traveled with a partner apart from going on holiday with them, so I imagine it's a bit more challenging, actually, like backpacking and doing the whole remote working with someone else.
Yeah, it's a challenge. We survived it, but there was definitely some close calls. Definitely challenging.
Congratulations on winning the Global Travel Writer of the Year. Has it always been your dream to become a travel writer? Because I think from the outside, looking in, it would seem as though you have a dream life. You're living a location independent lifestyle. You have the freedom, like you say. You're traveling with your boyfriend, which is so cool. And then you're also a travel writer, and you're an award-winning travel writer. So has it always been your dream to achieve that?
Do you know, I actually didn't really know that this lifestyle and B, this career was possible when I was in my 20s wanting to travel. I really didn't feel like it was achievable. I didn't really know anyone who was doing it. I didn't know anyone personally. At the time, I think there was a lot of bloggers living this life that I could see on social media. But I didn't see that many travel writers because they weren't as visible as Instagrammers and bloggers. And for me, I couldn't see myself doing the social media thing. I was like, I don't know if that's me. I don't know if I can do that, because I wanted to write. I didn't want to just take the photography or just do social media or just have my own blog. I felt like I'd come too late to the blogging scene to be able to make it. So I really did want to. I knew I could write, and I really did want to write for. It was a dream to write for publications like Nat Geo, like Condé Nast. It was the kind of things that I was reading to get inspiration for my travels. But it just didn't feel possible. I didn't know how to achieve it. I didn't know anyone in the industry. But slowly through travel is how I got into travel writing. It sounds kind of obvious, but it doesn't happen that way for everyone. A lot of people have journalism degrees, or they worked as staff writers in newspapers and then transitioned to travel writing. But for me, it really was, I wanted to travel first. That was my first goal. And then I actually started with copywriting jobs just on the road, using sites like Upwork. which wouldn't recommend now, but it helped me to get some experience. And then slowly I started to put together some ideas from my travels and started pitching to different publications. So the dream was to travel initially, to answer your question, and then the writing bit came later when I started doing more research, and I felt like actually maybe it is a career that exists and is possible, because to me it just seemed, as you said, like a dream life. It just wasn't attainable.
That's amazing. So it must have been really difficult for you when the pandemic hit and you weren't able to travel.
Yes, yeah, I mean, like everyone found it difficult, and I didn't have it bad compared to most. I had a roof over my head, and I had some money to make ends meet. But yeah, I went from traveling full time and travel being my living, just like you, being my source of income. You know exactly how this feels. To overnight, I lost all my work, lost all my commissions. So that was scary, especially, I was just at the beginning of the pandemic, I was kind of just starting to get regular writing jobs. I'm very much a newbie in the industry. So 2 years ago, I was just getting my first big jobs. And then it felt like it all came crashing down. But I'm still here, I'm still alive. And of course, the book, The Best British Travel Writing, came out of the pandemic. So didn't go to waste.
I love that. I love that, because I read in the foreword that because you couldn't travel, it made you start thinking about storytelling, and then what inspired you to travel in the first place, which was storytelling and the idea of the book. So can you tell us more about the book?
Yes, so it's a collection of 30 travel stories published in UK media, so UK newspapers, magazines like National Geographic, like Condé Nast, from travel writers. So I wanted to put together a collection that really celebrated travel storytelling at a time where we couldn't travel, and lots of travel writers, freelance travel writers like myself, had lost their work. So after I pitched the idea to Summersdale, our wonderful publishers, who loved the idea and said they'd help us get the book out there, we put out a call on social media for writers to submit what they believe to be their best work over the last 20 years. And we got hundreds of submissions. So it was a really, really difficult choice. But then myself, Levison Wood, Manisha Rajesh and Simon Wilmore, there's 4 of us editing this book, chose the 30 final stories.
That must have been a challenge from 100, because the 30 that you've picked are actually really diverse, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a huge range. We've got stories diverse in terms of destinations, in terms of voices, in terms of subject matter. There's stories kayaking in New Zealand, from walking trails in rural Iraq. It really is. You've got lots and lots of different stories written by lots of different people from very different backgrounds as well. And that was something that's no accident. We really did want to have an anthology that celebrated the diversity that is in travel writing, I believe, but hasn't really been celebrated or been allowed to come to the fore as much as we'd like to. But I think we're at a crossroads where we are starting to champion more diverse voices in travel in general. But the last 20 years have been, primarily white male. Is very, very dominated in the travel industry. But this book, I hope, kind of looks to the future of travel writing, which is hopefully a bit more diverse.
Yes. And you have a few stories from women who have travelled solo in the book as well, don't you?
Yes. Lots of different stories from women. I'm trying to think. Lola Akimade, Noor Sarawiwa, Sophie Roberts, who goes to Chad on her own it's on a group. I think it's organised, but it is on her own in the middle of remote Chad in the desert, which is an incredible story. She meets a really amazing man in there who is from Chad and shows her around, and gets to see parts of the country that many of us wouldn't without that meeting that person. So that's a brilliant story. There's lots of, for me, women travel writers, their stories are always, to me as a female writer, I love reading them, because you can always I can connect with it a lot more. You can always tell a female voice, I think, in travel writing. So yeah, that was lovely to see that so many women did submit work. It's definitely a lot of powerful female stories in there.
It's such a great project though, and especially because you thought of the idea during the pandemic. When you were reading the stories, has it inspired you to go to any countries that you hadn't thought of going to before?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I mentioned Sophie Roberts' story in Chad. Chad was never, I'd never thought of going to Chad, but reading her story, really, I know, because it says somewhere in the story how many people visit a year, but it's not a lot, and it has so much to offer for the adventurous traveller, and it's something that it did inspire me. That's on the subject of female writers as well. Karen Edwards, she goes to Pakistan, wrote a beautiful story. It's about her trip there in the mountains, staying with a family there. Pakistan's another one that I'd love to go to after reading her story. There's so many. Kayaking down the Congo River, loads, so many that I hadn't thought of, but also stories closer to home. There's some in the UK that inspired me. There's a story by Ray Bucock. It's a beautiful story. It is during the pandemic. It's after Brexit. There's a lot of it's called Current Affairs, so there's like a political thread through there, but really it's a story of Ray walking along the English coast path and trying to find what unites us as Brits. And at the same time, her description is amazing of conversations she overhears while she's having her fish and chips on the beach. And it just inspires you as well to get out in your own hometown and really have that sense of adventure, not having to leave your home at all. You can always hear stories and have a sense of adventure if you've got that mentality. So yeah, really good story. So many good stories in there. I could go on.
And do you feel that storytelling has been lost within travel blogs? Because I started my blog about 10 years ago, and at the time, I think quite a few female bloggers started because they were just relaying their stories of traveling to new destinations at the time. But now it's kind of changed, and it's more about monetizing it and making a full-time income out of it. It feels... I know this personally as well, because from my own blog, I'm finding that I'm having to write more content that's more fact-based, and it's taken it away from, not that it wasn't factual in the first place, but the reason I started it was for storytelling and to share these little mini adventures that I have, like a conversation with a local or something funny or silly that happens to me that I wanted to tell other people. And I feel that that's got lost a little bit, and I would love to go back to writing more of those stories. So it's great that you've produced a book that is all about storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to, I'm obviously, I don't have my own blog. I write only for publications. But I have to admit, I find it difficult to read some blogs because, as you say, there isn't that storytelling element. It's very much, go here and here's the best 15 restaurants, or I did this, this is what you should do. Very it's service writing, right? It's telling people what to do, how to do it. Which of course people do want that, and there is a place for that. Even in magazines, they all do that as well. So it's not just blogs that are doing that. It's the top magazines. Nat Geo always have their top 15 cities to go to this summer, because it is, as you say, it's that monetizing game. It's clickbait. It's trying to get eyes onto your content, and that's the reality that many people have to do to survive. And if that's what's popular, if that's what people want, then we do have a job to do, and we do have to answer to what people want. But I do think there are a lot of people that also want to hear people's stories. I won't hear of anything different. If anyone wants to say that long form is dead, I don't believe it, because I enjoy reading it. So I think other people must enjoy it too. And publications are still running stories, as it goes to show. We had hundreds of submissions for this. So there are people that are creating these long form stories. And I think blogging, for me, from an outsider looking in, it felt like blogging is very inward looking. It's about the blogger. Whereas the reason I wanted to write for publications was because they are outward looking. They're very much about the writer in lots of good stories kind of disappears. We're just a mouthpiece for the destination and for the story, for the people there. That's how I see my role. I want to go to a destination, and if I hear of an incredible person doing some incredible things, it's not about me, it's about them. And I'm just using my writing skills, my connections to the publication, to get their voice heard, or to get their story out there to a different audience that they might not necessarily reach on their own. So that's the difference. And yeah, I would love to see more storytelling and more just thoughtful reports from bloggers when they go out there into the world, and just really, as you said, making sure that we're reporting fairly and letting people's voices come through a little bit more.
Very true. What are your plans for the future? Do you have any countries lined up to go to? And as a travel writer, do you choose where you want to go depending on what story you want to pitch? How do you do it?
Oh yeah, good question. Before, I kind of just I normally just go where I want to, and then I'm like, oh, this looks really interesting. And I mean, every country, this is what I'm learning, every country has stories. It doesn't matter where you go. Some people are very like, no, that country, if you go to Italy, everything's been written about Italy, and that is so not true. I found even the destinations that have been written about over and over again, you still find some little thing, because your experience is different to another writer's experience. So you always find stories. So how I do it, I normally do research ahead of time, and into the things that I already enjoy. I travel for food, I travel for traditions, indigenous culture. So I'll search those things, and normally I'll choose my destination based on that. But yeah, as I say, pretty much every country I've been to, there's been something surprising and something really interesting to write about. So if anyone's decided, don't worry too much about the destination. I think bucket lists are really, everyone has like their list that they want to go to, but sometimes you can have the best time in a country where you didn't know anything about it, and it wasn't necessarily on your top 10 list. And it because it's surprising, because you haven't researched it and seen loads of photos on social media, it makes it even better. So try and let go of your bucket list sometimes. It does help.
Definitely. I went to West Africa for a month in December, and I didn't do hardly any research, and I fell in love with Sierra Leone. And I had so many stories that I've written up a couple of them, but it just gave me so much inspiration and so much creativity when I was there. And I didn't expect to like the places so much. It's because I had no expectation whatsoever. It's fantastic. So you're right. Just don't think about your bucket list. Just go to a destination.
Absolutely.
Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to get into travel writing?
Oh, where do I start? Really think about why you want to be a travel writer. If you're starting out, really think about what your motivations are, what kind of travel writer you want to be. So by motivation, I mean, do you want to be a travel writer because you look at travel writers and bloggers and think their life is amazing? I want free trips. I want to go to the Maldives and have everything paid for and just have a wonderful life. Because the reality is that yes, we do get sponsored for trips. Yes, we do get to go on some incredible trips, and that's not to take away from that. But being a travel writer is an incredibly tough and sometimes lonely. It can be lonely. You're traveling long hours. You work long hours for not a lot of money. In case people think that travel writing is kind of bringing in the big bucks, but that's just, this isn't to put you off. It's just so you have a real expectation of what being a travel writer is, and that is being on the road a lot of the time and being prepared to put in long hours for not that much money for the amount of time that you put into it. So really think about your motivations would be my first thing, because that will impact on what kind of travel writer you want to be. So for example, if your motivation is to stay in beautiful hotels, to eat really brilliant, you want to go Michelin style food, then you want to become a luxury travel writer. You want to be writing for the Condé Nast, for the Travel and Leisure. If your motivation is slightly different, you actually want to go on more expedition style trips, you're really interested in history and culture, and you love interviewing people and getting people's stories out, then maybe you want to write more for the National Geographic style publications, and you'll have to work long hours. You're not working in luxury, so it might be paid a little less. So yeah, all of those things I didn't know when I started out, but I think looking back, I wish I'd known sooner why I want to do it and what kind of travel writer I want to be and who I want to write for. So start there.
Thank you. Well, you've done amazing. Yeah, definitely have. You've done amazing, considering you said you were a newbie writer just before the pandemic.
I was, yeah, I know, and still learning. This is what I love about being a writer. Every day you learn, especially as a freelance writer. But if I can do it, anyone can. I truly believe that. If I did it with no contacts, with very little money, no journalism degree, and here I am. So if you want to be a travel writer, don't listen to people that tell you it's not possible, because it is. I got told many a time that it wasn't possible, and here I am and enjoying it. I really do enjoy it.
Good. It's obviously what you're meant to be doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I can't imagine myself doing anything else at the moment. So, but yeah, as I say, a house would be good. Saving. It's in progress.
Is that your plan for this year?
Yes, yeah, it really, I mean, I love to travel, I love being on the road, but yeah, it gets to a point where even travel writers do need a little home base at some point. So we'll see.
And I find that it gets to a stage where you feel like you're constantly working, because if you're traveling all the time, you're seeing new things, you're taking photos, or as a blogger anyway, you're writing down notes, you're thinking about hooks and angles, you're writing down facts. So it's very hard to take time off. People who have a different type of job would then go on holiday just to have that rest time. But when you write about travel, it's very hard to get that time off, isn't it? Not that that's negative, but that's just
no, it is. Yeah, this is just being realistic. I think people are like, how can you complain? You guys, you bloggers, you writers have the perfect life, but it is it's very hard to switch off. It is definitely full on. I mean, I got, like you said, I go somewhere and it's meant to be a holiday, and I can't. I've got my notepad out.
Yeah.
It's kind of an obsession. It's a bit weird. So I'm glad you're the same. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I've been doing it since I can remember. I've just been writing notes and notes, because I did some travel writing before, and I got published in a few magazines, and some airline magazines. But even before that, I was just writing notes, just because, and
just in case.
Yeah, it's like ingrained in me. I can't do a tour, I can't go anywhere without writing notes, and it's very hard to switch off. Yeah, you need a meditation retreat, I think.
Oh, I know. I think our friends and family look at us and go, you can't relax, what are you doing? I think that's like, it's nice to go on holiday or go on work trips with fellow like bloggers and writers, because they understand that, like, it's okay, I know you've got to work.
Yeah, Oh, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about the book just before we wrap up? Or about
Just to let
anything?
people know that the book's available to buy now on Amazon, Waterstones, WH Smith's, Daunt Books, all the great bookshops across the UK. So if you love travel writing, please do support these amazing writers. I'm sure there's so many stories in there that you'll enjoy. So yes, available to buy. And if you enjoy it, please leave us an Amazon review. That really helps as well.
Great. Thank you, Jess. And I'll put a link to a few places where people can get their hands on the book as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And you can find out more about Jessica at her website, jessicagvincent.com, and the book, The Best British Travel Writing of the 21st Century, is available now in all big bookshops.
Thanks for listening to our Girl About the Globe podcast, making solo travel easier for you. Find everything that you need for your solo travels at girlabouttheglobe.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.